Okay, well, let's get this started then. I don't think we're expecting anyone else. As I'm sure you've seen from the chat, Trent's not here today, so I'll be running the call. And yeah, let's get going then. So I guess I'll start with updates from the spec side. I merged a fairly a PR with fairly big changes. As PR number 16, basically doing what we discussed last week, which was separating out like the files that contributors receive from the full transcript, so that the file size is constant for the contributors. The changes I think are fairly sensible. I'm not entirely happy with the naming yet, so I've called the file that gets sent around a contribution, which I see by chance happened to line up with Jeff's API PR, but we can discuss that in a moment. And then the full thing's the transfer, but it gets a little bit more confusing when we talk about sub contributions and sub transcripts for the various sub ceremonies we're running. I didn't want to use sub ceremony everywhere for naming collisions. Anyway, that is, I guess, fairly consistent. I imagine most of the things that were changed there would be as you'd expect, except for one potential thing, and that's the participant no longer calculates the so-called running product, because this information is just the latest G1 point or G2 point from the contribution. So this was an extra check we'd have to perform, where you basically check that the supplied running product matches the points provided, but now we trust the coordinator to pull that out themselves. It's not really a trust assumption, it's just what was happening anyway before. There was in that PR, there was it corrected also a bug that I had made, which was where I put basically the wrong parameters into one of the pairings for doing this check, the running product check, which basically meant it was impossible to check it the way I was trying to check it. So I also corrected that in the PR, and I'll send in a moment. I'll send a branch which sort of just has those corrections in case you want to see what they are. But it turns out that Kev was already doing it in a slightly different way, which is basically what my fix does anyway. So everything that was sort of downstream of Kev's Rust implementation was consistent there. So that's cool to see. And then the other thing that happened this week was the start of the SecBit audit. So they are primarily checking the specifications and Kev's Rust implementation, both for on Kev's side for sort of panics and that kind of thing, and then more generally for correctness. And yeah, they've done a bunch of audits before for these kinds of ceremonies, and so they specialize in ZK stuff. So we'll see what they bring out of the audit. And yeah, those are the major updates on the spec side. Anyone have any questions, queries, or comments?
I think they also wanted to look at the Python like implementation as well. I think they said it won't extend the time, so it would be fine.
Yes, that's my understanding as well. For those listening, the reason Kevin and I are a little unclear on this is this wasn't a part of the initial statement of work, but they seemed pretty keen to just do this anyway because they thought it was sort of minor extra overhead and provides extra clarity. So I guess we're fairly thankful for that anyway, too. Okay, should we move on to Kev? Do you have anything that you want to talk about about your Rust implementation or the Python reference implementation?
No, I think it's all sort of fairly stable right now. Just waiting for comments from the audit. I do need to upstream the change where the running product's not in the update proof, just on the API part. But I was just going to wait for them to basically come back with changes first, so I can just do it all in one turn. Apart from that, I did start to peek into the part on top of the cryptography, just because Secbit mentioned it when we were doing the kickoff. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where we are with that, so it'd be good to get some clarification. I think we could do without a UI right now if you just have a page that just shows the current SRS, for example. Just no JavaScript or anything, just show the HTML of the SRS. That would be fine for us to sort of start looking at any possible inconsistencies and stuff like this. But yeah, that's it from my side. I haven't done too much looking into it because I don't know where we are currently in terms of code written for that.
Okay, I think this kind of segues nicely into what Jeff's just been doing. So I guess can we chat about that then? And then, like, if you have still questions on that, can we loop back to Kev? Like if this doesn't answer your questions. Cool.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Yeah, so the API specs are a little more solid, I think. A little bit more work to do there, but they're taking shape. Nico has been working on the API framework and tooling and so on, and I've especially asked him to have a test harness that we can really hammer this thing with testing. So he's working on those things, progressing that. What else have I been looking at? Yeah, the design framework has moved on a bit. They're wireframes. There are a bunch of comments in that wireframe. We're kind of having a discussion in what is it, Charlie, the Figma document. So everyone's welcome to have a look in there and add comments. What else? I had a discussion with CryptoSat that we can talk about later, whether we want to do a special contribution in space. Yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Okay. I think there's still going to be a little bit of sort of misunderstanding between Kev and you here. Kev, do you have questions?
Yeah, so I guess what is the API? Because sort of in my head, the front end sort of has a back end as well. It's like you have the front end, which is the UI, then you have the back end.
Yeah, it is. So I'm talking about the when I say client API, I mean the front end, I guess, the interaction with the queuing system,
right?
And downloading and uploading the SRS. Yeah, so the back end. Yeah. I haven't. I don't think I included that in my specs. But yeah, that's that is something that coordinators will not coordinators, client implementations will need to support.
Right. And in terms of backend for the coordinator, just to make sure we're on the same page, like for example, they might have a API endpoint that says add to queue or something like this, or register for queue, like for the coordinator.
For the coordinator. Coordinator is really just hosting those endpoints, the client API endpoint, right? So there is a queue/join endpoint.
Right. And this is what you call the backend?
Oh no. So I'm calling that the client API.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's sort of one API. I'm not quite sure what the concept of a backend API would be, but there's sort of one API, which is what Jeff wrote up in the PR I just linked in the chat, PR 15, right? And that's just sort of that's basically do exactly what you were just talking about, Kev, which is there's an auth and a join and a check in and contribute, etc., etc.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think I was splitting up the client API and the coordinator API to be different things.
No, so
the two roles, same API.
Yeah, exactly. They're just basically on either ends of this API.
Oh, so we have one code base and a person can choose to be a contributor or a coordinator via this API.
Well, no, only the coordinators will be carefully chosen. Not just anyone can choose it.
No, sorry. I mean by the code. Like if I have the code, I could choose to start a coordinator or a contributor. Is that correct?
No,
So,
you're always a contributor.
So I guess what might this answer your question, Kev, is like which repo would you pull and what would you run? What would you build and run if you're trying to run a coordinator? Like if the person running the coordinator is trying to do this, and where's the which repo has the participant implementation that you guys have been working on?
And I guess additionally, because what I'm hearing is that there's one API. So to me, it sounds like as a coordinator, I could call into the API for the contributor. Is that?
Wait, why would you do this? Like, I mean, it's like you're hosting the API, right? This is what it means to be a coordinator.
I guess I'm a bit confused with a client. What's the client API then? Is it just the API hosted? That's hosted by the coordinator?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. Okay. Yeah, I guess, yeah, my question was, do we have like code that we can currently use now to sort of put sort of test things out and check for like problems that we could have?
The API code is not running at the moment. It's just being developed in local implementation.
Okay, but the coordinator,
I think we're a little way off of having that ready.
The
coordinator, yeah.
Okay, but even outside of the API stuff, like just sort of the internal logic, is there a place that we can look at that?
Yeah. Let me find it and I'll drop a note in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Because I think one of the things the audit people are a little concerned about is exactly like how is this used? And we have this sort of nice idea that the the KZG Rust implementation of the crypto is isolated via the SDK, etc., but that's not necessarily like that. That's a nice abstraction, but might not necessarily be the case. So it's worth digging into a bit.
Yeah, I was looking at some previous ceremonies, and I think the reason why I'm a bit confused with the API is because their setup is slightly a bit different, where they sort of have, for example, the coordinator runs the cryptography, and then it has an internal API, and then the front end calls that internal API. So I guess the reason they did this is just because they didn't want to use WASM. I'm not sure if that makes any sense.
Finding it hard to envisage that setup.
Yeah, I mean, there's that sort of like built in by default, right? Like you still have an interface between WASM and the coordinator code, right?
No, so the coordinator and those setups don't use WASM at all. They use like just REST endpoints.
Oh, they have another RESTful API there.
Right, an internal one. That's why I was a bit confused when you guys were talking about APIs.
Okay.
So the coordinator runs the cryptography natively, and then like the front end just calls whatever it needs from the coordinator via REST endpoints. Yeah, I guess that's where my confusion was from.
I see. It's not immediately obvious to me what the benefits of sort of hosting that internally would be. Like, why do you need a RESTful API for that?
I guess it's just for big ceremonies, or I don't know how fast the coordinator is, but for big ceremonies, you probably don't want to use WASM because it gives you it's not as performant as just running native code.
Yeah, but like say you were to build a like Rust server, right? The Rust coordinator end to end or Go whatever. Then like why would you use a RESTful API then to call to your own internal stuff? Like I get the point of having a fast implementation, but it just seems a bit ridiculous if you're going to call to your own API then.
Yeah, you can call to your, I guess you can also make it separate on a different server. That's a lot faster. But yeah, I think you wouldn't need the rest.
Yeah, for like the separate server thing, I could understand, particularly if you could do like you host in the cloud and there's a separate instance which you can GPU accelerate or something like that. But my understanding is that hasn't really been the case. I genuinely I don't know. I'm not trying to defend one choice or another. I don't understand the RESTful side.
Yeah, I don't actually know which one's better either. I'm just saying what I saw. I only saw it from the Plumer ceremony when I saw their setup. They sort of had things in this manner where yeah, it wasn't all in one server. But yeah, to what you said, I don't know if it does make sense to have internal REST API endpoints. It looked like something that was natural, but yeah, thinking about it, maybe it doesn't make sense. You could just sort of save the file and have the sort of native code just read the file.
Yeah, the Plume ceremony was quite complicated, wasn't it? In terms of there was lots of interaction. Like each client received little chunks of work to do or something like that.
Yeah,
so it might have been something to handle all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess one further question here, Jeff, is how easy would it be to separate out the coordinator into its own repo from sort of the code that gets served up to the client, to the participant?
Yeah, not super easy as it currently is. Well, separate out the repo, yeah, that's something we've talked about doing. But the implementation is tightly bound with Firebase. That's the difficulty. Like to just set this up as a something we could easily swap from one coordinator to another it's not really set up that way at the moment. But I haven't put a real lot of thought into what's the best way to go about that. But we are trying to disentangle ourselves from Firebase, and that will make it easier.
Okay, I mean, I'm not familiar enough with the code base to comment on the sort of technical challenges here, but just intuitively, it feels to me that these should be separate entities, particularly from a like audit or just having people who are running the ceremony themselves who want to see like what's happening under the hood. Just because the trust assumptions are so different between the coordinator and like what the participant's going to be running.
Yeah.
It would be nice to sort of have this like isolated, like each code base goes as far as this API between them.
So you're really saying that the repo itself having a separate repo for the coordinator would be advantageous?
I think so. Like to me, ideally, there's sort of the like coordinator / backend side of things, which is, and I don't mean backend as in like website, but like API backend, which basically runs everything up to that. And then there's a separate thing, which is sort of the website, which serves like the server that serves the website to you.
Yeah. So we talked about different ways of slicing and dicing this repo, but we were talking about having a mono repo, but maybe we should just maybe I can see your point. Maybe it's better to totally separate out that server side stuff.
To me, this is also just a little bit enhanced by the, like, if you're going to be writing your own implementation, then it's like it makes sense not to sort of be seeing this combined. But like again, I'm not familiar enough with your code base to understand how reasonable of a request or whatever this is. But I think it would be nice to see.
Yeah. Okay.
My understanding, it's kind of naive, but I sort of thought that while doing the server stuff, the first thing you'd probably do is the coordinator API. So no UI at all, just REST endpoints. And the coordinator would just need access to a database to probably store the queues of people. The front end would deal with the OAuth stuff, I guess. And then the coordinator just needs to plug into some cryptography library. And then is that roughly what we need to do? Like, so roughly what you need from Firebase is the database, just basically storage, permanent storage.
That's right. Yeah. For exactly that, for keeping track of client contributors and user IDs and stuff. So just to be clear, the stuff that's under server in our repo is purely backend stuff. It does the validation, it does I can say queue management. It doesn't really do queue management, but it'll serve that those REST endpoints. it's the thing that's complicated is that the stuff that's under client, which is the web page, is tightly bound with Firebase at the moment. So that's so there's a lot of common code in what's currently in client and what's currently in server. All that Firebase stuff from client will disappear and be replaced with REST calls. So it'll be a lot cleaner at that point, and then we will further, clean up the relationship between the backend and the database.
Right. And the backend, the coordinator stuff in server, are the REST endpoints being served up by? Is it being done by Firebase? I'm not actually. Like
no, we've set up a standalone Nginx and Node Express server for that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was looking at your code, I think a month ago, and I think one thing you may have a problem with is given a progress bar for how long things are taking. Because the cryptography basically just does everything in one go. It contributes to everything.
Yeah, that's right. It's not so important in this case. It's important when you got a 10 or 15-minute contribution. It'd be nice to have that progress bar there, and maybe we can kind of fake it, or I don't know how we're going to do it.
You could probably do
a quick calculation of 100 points and then see how long that takes and extrapolate.
I think you could probably just say that if you give them 1 minute to contribute, then just do a progress bar that's slowly getting down to 1 minute. And then if they contribute quicker, then just quickly shift it to the end.
Yeah, that'll probably work actually.
Yeah, I mean, people are generally happy with queues that take less or things that take less time than expected. So something maybe something that says this should take no longer than the current timeout, which I believe is 3 minutes. So this should take no longer than 3 minutes. And you can update to sort of like 95% or whatever just before you start uploading the file back to the coordinator.
Yeah,
uploads and download progress will still work, I think. Oh, yeah. Wait. No, not so sure. Maybe.
Okay. I think one other point, just a little bit on what we were talking about before, which is, Kev, you said that you think the OAuth stuff shouldn't be on the coordinator/server side, and I think I disagree with you a little bit there, because these are like fundamental to the API. It's like how you register yourself as a participant.
Oh, sorry. If I said that, it's because I'm still using the front end and back end terminology.
Okay.
So the coordinator, in my head, I keep thinking that there's a back end for the coordinator and the front end for the coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then I think with that language, I'd agree with that statement.
Yeah. So the coordinator would still need to do the OAuth. And probably I think we're using JWT as the. Okay. Would it help if I started looking into these things? Because I think we're going to need separate servers eventually, separate coordinators eventually. So I don't know if it'd be helpful to have some second API for this without the OAuth stuff, because I'm not 100% familiar with OAuth. Or should we just wait until this code is refactored and then?
So you're saying adding a second API for the crypto?
No, I mean adding a coordinator API. Would it help if I was to start looking into this, so then we'd have two?
What would be the difference? So it's sort of a
It'd be the
subset.
same. No, it'd be the same API. It's just that it's just a different, basically, implementation.
So you're talking about a second coordinator implementation?
Yeah, I'm asking if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Right, it should like basically up to the API that Jeff posted on the repo, the PR15. Yeah, if we could have another backend implementation, that'd be pretty cool.
And it's still the case that we're looking to have multiple coordinators.
As in like multiple people running like over time,
Yeah.
not simultaneously.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And I think it's worth noting here, we don't have to be super streamlined in terms of how we change over between coordinators. So if we shut down the ceremony for a few hours to do this, I think that's acceptable. The one thing, if we are talking about a second coordinator implementation, is that we need to standardize what the files are that are passed between
coordinators.
Yeah. So the transcript itself should be sufficient for the cryptography side of things, but sort of who has like the state of the queue, that would need to be standardized as its own file.
Right. Wait, does that mean that if I'm a new coordinator, I need to pick up from where like Jeff left off, or did I misunderstand?
Oh, I think we'd run the queues down to the end and then do the handover, wouldn't we?
Yeah, but this means that people could contribute multiple times under the same identity.
Oh yeah.
All right.
So what we'd hand over is the history of people who have contributed.
Yes. And people maybe that we've sort of banned from contributing or whatever because they were offline, malicious, whatever.
Yeah.
So like I mean, a file that sort of looks like a mapping from an identity to some kind of status where we can agree on a few different statuses.
And what's the identity here? I'm not familiar with OAuth enough. Like,
no, this is our identifier, so it's an Ethereum address or an ENS name or a GitHub handle.
Right.
Yeah. So the OAuth stuff would have to be sort of local to the server, right? That's a function of the queue and is a part of the sort of like internal logic of the server, the coordinator.
So that means that if you do sign in with GitHub, as a coordinator, I'd pass to Jeff your GitHub handle so that if you do sign in with GitHub again, then we just say you've already contributed.
Yes.
Right. But you can, yeah, of course you can still just do sign in with Ethereum or something, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So one of the discussion points on the API, or at least sort of some of the files surrounding it, is that Jeff mentioned that in the transcript we bake in the identities. This is currently not something that is done there, but I can make those changes. I'll open a PR for that. This is not sufficient though, because the people may have sort of entered the queue and then just missed their slot or something like that, and we still need to keep track of that. So this is sort of a separate thing we need to export out of the coordinator.
The identities are only needed for the coordinators, so does it make sense to put it in the transcript as well?
Well, so this is why I left it out initially. I mean, it's not really only for a coordinator, because it's also for sort of like retroactively checking who who participated.
Hmm.
But that's like this is not like, this doesn't actually tell you who participated, it's who the coordinator thought participated, which means
Right.
there's a trust assumption there. So it's not something you should go trust, but like you might see names you recognize and then go look for their attestations.
Right.
So I,
Yeah.
I initially excluded it because it's like not like it doesn't add anything, is not important to the like the logic and the safety of the ceremony itself, but maybe that's not necessarily correct here.
I think probably in my head it'd probably be good to have it somewhere, but probably not embedded in the transcript because it's not needed to verify the ceremony. So like if you could have like GitHub handle pointing to the public key in some separate file, and then if later on I want to search up for your GitHub handle, it points to your public key, and from your public key I can then see where you contributed inside of the ceremony.
I mean, we can make the same argument for the running products then, right?
The running
Because you don't, the only thing you need to verify is that it is a powers of tile construction.
is that it is a power, but you do need the running product in order to do the like you need, because you need it also to be a part of, so like at the end you get the final SRS, you need the running products to show the transition from the first one to the last SRS.
Yes, you need the last element from that list.
You need the last.
You need the final one, right?
Yeah, the final SRS.
Yeah, I agree with that. But this doesn't, you don't need sort of all the intermediate ones plus all the pub keys involved in that.
No, I think you do to show the transition, right? So to go from the first SRS to the final one, you need the running products.
But are these meaningful like outside of knowing identities? Like, what does it mean to verify this if you don't have an identity that you're verifying it against? Like, if you know one of the pub keys that you trust in the list, then absolutely I agree with you. But without that, then all you care about is that it's a correct powers of, like, a correct construction of powers.
I guess I see those as two different sort of concerns. The first one is that, is this SRS, was it correctly transformed from the first one to the last one? Meaning these are all of the individual contributions. And then the second concern is, did Carl really contribute to this ceremony?
I mean, I agree with that statement, but I think the first the first bit of this is meaningless unless you can tie it to some kind of identity. Like, it's pointless checking that there were sort of intermediate SRSs as you were going through it, right? That's irrelevant unless you're checking at least one of the pub keys along the way. Like, by verifying this, you gain precisely no information about security aside that there were some kind of intermediate things, but without knowing who this is tied to or that it was tied to people, is this useful information?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's like, part of this is it's also this transcript has many like sub transcripts. So like, when this is actually used, when like if you're using this in some other code, you're also gonna only sort of look at the sub transcripts. There's like multiple ways you can verify this thing, which to me also adds a little bit of complexity and confusion around this.
There are multiple ways to verify the transcript.
Like, are you verifying the full transcript, or are you just verifying the sub transcript you care about for your particular use case? So like ultimately, right, this SRS goes into client code, and these clients, they're not going to verify the whole thing every time or whatever. So that's either going to be sort of a hash that they use, or they're going to like just verify that the powers are correctly constructed, but beyond that, they don't care.
That seems like the clients shouldn't be doing that, right? They should be verifying that the final SRS was correctly constructed from this initial SRS with these contributions.
That should be done at least once.
Right.
Like we should do
Once
this
by the client.
You can't do this every time on startup. That's a bit excessive.
Right.
Maybe there's a flag to do that, but
right. Yeah, I don't know. I still see them as two different concerns. Like
okay.
the first one, like with the first one, you're sure that the coordinator didn't just throw in some random SRS that has the correct structure.
Yeah, but
like,
you
for
have
example,
this is exact like my point is that's not true, because the coordinator can just make up intermediate transcripts and give that to you, like intermediate SRSs, and give that to you.
The coordinator can just right. Okay, yeah, I see your point. And it's only after the second stage where someone says that was actually me.
Yeah. Like you without verifying at least one of the pub keys against something.
Yeah.
You gain precisely no information by checking the intermediate SRSs.
So really no information.
Like you can't distinguish between a coordinator that just made up intermediate SRSs and somewhat useful SRSs.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we bake in the GitHub handle, does that mean that when people are verifying like the transcript at the end, they can, instead of using the pub key, they'll use a GitHub handle?
I mean, I like the ultimate identifier is still the pub key, but this might give you a reference point to go look for someone.
Right.
That's a little bit where I think this argument breaks down to me, is like, in and of itself, this doesn't like this is the sort of the backlink, but you need the forward link in this case. Like you care that this GitHub person says this was my contribution, as opposed to the other way around. But like this just gives you information as to who you might look at for this information.
Right.
But where I can really agree with you on this is it does feel like a different, like there's almost a type or category error here of what information is being conveyed in the this file.
Yeah, to me it feels like a separation of concerns, but I do believe I saw something. I forgot what did the other ceremonies do, because I do remember you have to put your GitHub handle or Twitter something somewhere. I don't know if it's inside of the file.
Yeah, in the not.js format, it's embedded in the file.
It's inside of the transcript that you use.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Then if that's what's been done in the past, then I don't have a strong anything against it. And it does seem to be not separating concerns, but it doesn't seem like a big problem. I guess we just interpret that part as just a blob of text, and we just need contributors to basically write it in some standardized format. So like GitHub : GitHub name, Twitter : Twitter name.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And they should only be able to use specific social media sites, which we write down somewhere.
Yeah, so this is also a part of Jeff's PR the API PR, who's discussing what is and isn't acceptable as auth.
Right.
I think might be a good next thing to chat about a little bit.
Right. What if I don't want to put my GitHub or Twitter? I want to put some random.
There's sign in with Ethereum, which will be tied to ideally your ENS, but if you don't have your ENS, you can just tie it to a pub key.
Right. But I can leave it empty as well if I want. So it's just my, or do I have to put my pub key?
We have to auth you somehow to prevent you DOSing us, right?
Right, but I don't want to put my auth inside of the file. Is that possible?
No, I haven't allowed for that.
It might not be a particular use case.
A different address.
Yeah, so like to me, if you care about this, then you should think about having a, as just said, you just spin up a different address. There's like this weird trade-off here, right? Because if you're going to be completely pseudo-anonymous and like you have no identity attached to this pseudo-anonymity, then like what are you adding aside for convincing yourself that it's secure?
So could I add just my public key that I've used? So no, not the GitHub thing I used to OAuth.
What do you mean? Which public key?
The one that I used to participate with. So instead of Twitter : Kev, it's like pub key :
So by pub key, do you mean Ethereum pub key?
No, I mean the pub key I used to contribute to the ceremony. Sorry, the pub key that's associated with my contribution.
No, currently not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a particular use case. If somebody doesn't want to put their Twitter.
Yeah, but you like if you're putting in like it could just literally just be an Ethereum address, right? Like to me, that's more than enough anonymity. Like you can just spin up an Ethereum ADI for this.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's not a particular use case.
Like somehow we're authing you anyway. And I can get that you might not want to link this to your Twitter or your GitHub. That's fine. But like I you still have some kind of identity to us that we've checked.
Right.
And like your contribution is not particularly helpful if there's no identity at all tied to it. Like you convince one person that you participated. I mean, which is nice. Like it's useful to have this, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if you convinced one person. I could just go to you, and if you trust me, I'll be like, yeah, this is my contribution.
Yeah, but
it's just
this would
everybody.
This would look the same as being sort of pseudo-anonymous, but also having an Ethereum address that linked to it.
Right. Okay, so if I want to do basically be pseudo-anonymous, I'd need to get MetaMask, or is there like the process to get the new Ethereum addresses sort of frictionless?
So you, as the specs are currently written, you need any Ethereum address where you can do a sign in with Ethereum, which means basically just signing a message with your pub key, and we verify that your nonce is greater than 3.
Okay.
So if you can meet those requirements, so in any wallet that can sign messages, which I believe should be every wallet. And then this nonce thing.
Yeah, maybe it's fine. I think there might be some pushback from people in the future who just want to contribute to the ceremony without sort of going through Ethereum or any Ethereum protocol. But maybe the argument is you're sort of contributing to an Ethereum ceremony, so that's the least, the minimum bar.
I mean, like I'm if you have ideas on what to expand this to beyond what we have, like if you have other auth/anti-DDoS mechanisms, then I'm happy to sort of discuss that.
Yeah, I don't actually know. I just thought that people would want to contribute anonymously.
But like you still
I don't have
are.
any.
It's like anonymous up to the point of an Ethereum address.
Yeah, sort of anonymously without an Ethereum address. But yeah, maybe we're just splitting hairs here, and because it was just a use case that I thought up that might not actually be something that people want to do.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think probably need to kind of identify our primary target user. So we did some exercise in the like US part, so we identified most of people will participate this ceremony. I'm kind of familiar with Ethereum, so they will probably most likely like me. I wouldn't be comfortable to sign up with my Twitter, so I will definitely use my Ethereum address, and nobody really know that's me. So I think for now, I think we're pretty okay. Definitely, if in the future, if we want to kind of grow our adoption, then we can think a way that user can, I don't know, sometimes there's like magic link, so you can kind of sign up quickly. But I don't think this is kind of our first goal here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you.
Yeah, it would certainly be possible to like add a stealth mode and then validate them and tell the coordinator not to include the identity. But I'm just not really sure there's a use case for that.
So in the interest of moving on to other topics, because we have 6 minutes left, I'll open this PR where we add the sort of IDs to the transcript, and we can discuss whether this there should be a flag for not tying your identity to it. We can discuss that there.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So, I mean, I'm interested in hearing sort of about the UI, but I guess in the interest of time, is there like anything that needs to be discussed on the, like on this call, and that'd be good to do by this format, besides for that? Okay, then can we get an update on what the UI is looking like, or sort of what the progress is on that front, and how we can, like, what's the best way to give feedback on that?
Yeah. Sorry, UI, do you mean the Figma design for the moment?
Yes,
or?
yes. I mean your stuff.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, sorry.
Yeah. So I was really looking like how to make this experience magical, because I find it can be very fun, and since Jeff kind of telling me this is high profile, so I would like to people contribute, has this magical feeling, and they are doing collective powering to create a kind of art together. So maybe I can share screen if we have only 4 minutes. I'm gonna just quickly show you guys how to browse my file if you can.
Yeah, that sounds good. Can you share screen, or do I need to change permissions?
Yeah, you disable the
Okay, stand by. Just figuring that out 1 sec.
Yeah, thank you. Wouldn't take more than 3 minutes.
No, my bottleneck is figuring out how to share, allow you to share screen.
Okay.
Okay. I think you should be able to start that now.
Okay. Right, you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I have actually two files. So this is more like UI, Figma, and I have another file kind of like whiteboarding. So in here, kind of roll down the kind of user journey. So let me zoom out in more. So we have kind of like persona we want to target to, and some kind of precondition. User journey, since we kind of feel it might be ready around DevCon, so we kind of consider DevCon as a special case here. So people discovered about this ceremony, investigate if this is safe whatsoever, and start signing committee contribution and waiting in queue. So all that, so feel free to have a look around. So this is kind of like just kind of imagine in each phases what user is doing and what they might be thinking. And thus we know what's our opportunity to help the experience and reduce the confusion. So that I will leave you guys to see. So information wise, I have a couple of pages I'm thinking. So homepage basically kind of have an intro and talk about what's this about and why users should contribute, stuff like that. And we have a dashboard which kind of showing the real-time contribution and a record to see all the complete contribution over time. And I add this page which didn't show in the previous trust setup. So basically, if I'm contributed, and I remember Jeff mentioned about possible of a pull-up will be airdrop or a user can claim. So I can come back to claim here and kind of see my contribution again. So that's basic idea. So those are kind of like design thing you can visit. And visually, I'm really thinking like, I don't know if you guys know about this Reddit wall. I'm sorry, on my laptop is a bit difficult to zoom. So basically, it's very blurred. So people kind of contribute to create some kind of art, very, very powerful. And yeah, I want to create a bit of magic feeling into the design whatsoever. So this is one file, this kind of like all the idea I drop in this board. And then in the other Figma file, so here I have this landing page. So basically a kind of title, what's happening here, and a big kind of lore, nice paragraph to give that vibe to the user right away. And then we kind of explain what's this about and why I contribute and about this trust about, and also the GitHub link so the user can learn more. There's the homepage. And then user can kind of open this side menu for sure, see the dashboard, record. And I haven't finished the sign-in flow. So right now I only have this option to use the Ethereum address. Maybe I need to add a GitHub or a Twitter if, as an option. So sign-in flow is not complete yet. Lastly, I want to show this dashboard. Sorry. So basically, the idea is if I'm a user, come from certain continent, I'm based in North America, and sorry. So I will have some kind of thing going on here with X or Y, how do you say, like drawing the dots or whatever. And maybe, yeah, so Jeff left me some comment yesterday. I probably will change this type of UI treatment here. The idea is really like make user feel they are part of something and they can visit all the overtime. So that's why I have kind of a play bar here. They can see all the progress happening. And yeah, so I think this is the area I need to kind of improve. I don't find it magical enough. And that's it, I think. And Draker, I don't have anything at the moment. So if you come here, there's a button here. If you haven't used Figma before, just take this one and then you can kind of drop anywhere and say, oh, I feel this should be whatever, whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That looks like it's coming along nicely. I definitely have a few thoughts and comments, but I'll add that to your work there.
Yeah, thank you.
Stuff. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the call. Yeah, I agreed. It does look amazing. And I'm really liking the magical vibes you're going for there.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. I guess from a sort of where do we take this from now? I think I'd like to chat a little bit more async with you, Kev, about a second implementation, or just what that could look like. I think I'd like to do another round of feedback or two on the API that you've been working on there, Jeff, and maybe open, like, let's encourage some like more public contribution in terms of how we are authoring people and what's the criteria your various accounts need to meet.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it from my end. Does anyone else have any interest, any stuff that they'd like to raise quickly before we terminate the call?
I think I want to speak with, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Chiali, because some stuff on your UI seemed like it needed the coordinator to store extra information. So it'd be interesting to see what you require of the coordinator, like the geography, or if you need anything else.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I was not very sure who I should kind of collaborate on the front end part. So yeah, it will be very helpful. Thank you.
On that topic, Charlie, I'm also not quite sure how to pronounce your name. What time zone are you in? I think it might be helpful to do a UI sort of discussion or call where we can dig into these things a little bit.
I'm based in Eastern Time, North America, not New York time.
Okay. I'm sure we can organize something either one-on-one or as a greater group for whoever would like to contribute with that.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks all. And I guess I'll see everyone on the Discord and Telegrams.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.